Well, I'm very pleased today to be talking to somebody whom I've known as a fellow geographer for 43 years or so. While I was in Maynooth, he was in Trinity, Professor Joe Haughton. Joe has kindly agreed to tell us a little about his early life in Dublin, a very different Dublin in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, I suppose, Joe.
Our house was in Churchtown. There were a group of people of Quaker extraction.
Mm-hmm. You didn't go to the Quaker school in Waterford. You went to Sandford Park.
I did, that's right.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Sandford Park. My father looked upon it as more important that we should mix with
a non-denominational school.
School.
And you had some very distinguished classmates there. Do you remember any of them? You had Conor Cruise O'Brien.
Conor Cruise O'Brien, I knew really very well.
Yeah. And you had Owen Sheehy Skeffington.
Oh, yes.
As well.
Skeffington I liked very much.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be an accountant because I saw in that the only possibility of any sort of development. But my teacher in school, a man called Auchmuty, Auchmuty, said to me that there was a new course beginning in Trinity, basically natural science, and he suggested that I might like to do that. And I think that was what made me too, my interests in that. And the whole question of talking about An Taisce, the whole question of preservation of the landscape, I don't quite know how it arose, but certainly it was present there in those early days. I don't actually remember the decision being made to establish a national trust, but I do know that there was a desire to set up some sort of organisation that would be responsible for the maintenance of the environment, and that was the main thing.
But there was a lot of very influential people in those early days, at those early meetings. You had Carvel O'Daly, for example, you had Tony Farrington, you had Frank Mitchell, and you had Lloyd Praeger, all involved, very well-known people now. But it looks like Praeger was the main driver of everything.
Praeger was very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, a very nice man. And I brought Praeger out to the North Pole on his very last outing, and I remember him reminiscing, and you know the book, The Way That I Went.
Yes, it's still on sale.
Yes, he brought a copy of that book with him. I brought a copy, and he wrote a very nice sort of introduction to it in the India Forum.
Now, in those early days, after you and him had come into contact, and he had founded An Taisce, was the priority mainly in buildings or in the natural environment? Because Dublin in post-war times must have been rebuilding very.
No, in the natural environment.
Was it? Yeah.
Oh yes, much more so. I don't think he was interested in buildings at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a very nice man, but I thought a rather lonely man too.
Yeah.
And towards the end of his life, he became very deaf, and he used to come to meetings of the field club in the academy, which were held regularly, and he would sit up near the lecturer, and he would comment on the lecturer in such a loud voice that everybody could hear him. And it was terribly embarrassing because often his comments were not particularly good. But anyway.
And the other people involved in those early days, I suppose Frank Mitchell would have been a great help to you as a geographer when he joined the department as well.
Frank Mitchell, he was tremendously interested in birds. And I travelled on one occasion with him to the Salty Islands. We were going for the day, but the wind blew up and the weather got so bad that they couldn't collect us. So we stayed the night on the Salties in the open with Frank Mitchell.
And of course, Tony Farrington, who also was involved in that founders meeting of An Taisce,
Yes.
he was responsible for unravelling the glacial history of the Wicklow Mountains as well.
That's right. I'm very, very much concerned with the whole evolution of the landscape of County Dublin.
There seems to have been a small circle of people who were movers and shakers, and you were one of them.
Yes.
What kind of priorities did you have? Were you influencing policy, for example? Because you had very influential people involved. When you had Carvel O'Daly, for example, who was later to become President of Ireland in that early council. Did you make representations on behalf of the National Trust to anybody, or were you purely field-based?
Not that I'm aware of. I might say it just happened.
What you were discovering about local areas, about local environments, they are still being studied today. They are still being developed today. And, there's so much more that can be done by enriching our knowledge of them today. It's a terrific legacy, because we were very pleased to discover you were one of the people at the first meeting of An Taisce, the National Trust. And to be able to get your recollection of it, to be able to get your experience of that time in Dublin has been extremely valuable for us, and I think we're all extremely grateful to hear your recollections today.